of Selectmen special meeting scheduled for November 15th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call, myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman. Also with us tonight is Nicole Porter, selectman, Brett Mastriani, selectman, and Christine Dias, admin and finance director. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, don't get jumpy. It's just me. I just happened to hit it on my way up. Okay, is there any public comments on non-agenda items? Mr. Anino. You want to use that microphone over there? Oh, yeah, that one's fine. Have you touched this one? No. Does it work?
Gary Anino, 91 Main Street, North Stonington. I'm just non-agenda item. The lots on Main Street at the intersection of Route 2 and Main Street, MBL 109, 1509, 9626, and 8810. Is there a way to get those three lots deeded as open space so we don't lose the green buffer between Route 2 and the village to the south? And I don't know what the process would be. I just figured I'd put it out there, go on the record as asking so somebody could get back and say what it would take.
So since we have someone here from planning and zoning, Pat Lewis. Pat, do you know the answer to his question, or Juliet, would you know the answer to that question? What would be the process to take those three lots on Main Street and you wanted to restrict them, correct, as open space?
Just keep the green buffer between Route 2 and the village. It could be that simple, but I wasn't sure the political process to make that happen. It's whether the selectmen could figure it out or whether it's got to go to the town, or does it need a petition to go to the town? What would it take?
So, why don't I find out for you? So you're on record as asking if we could deed restrict those and keep those as open space, so we don't seem like every year, or 2 years, somebody comes up with a plan for those three lots. So why don't I find out and get back to you?
Yeah, and the other piece would be how they came to the town. Did the town buy them? Were they donated?
Okay, so at a future Board of Selectmen meeting, the Board of Selectmen would vote to send an A24 request to the planning and zoning. That would kick the process off, and then I know what it is after that, so. Okay,
Talk. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? If none, any other non-public? Selectmen comment? Either? Okay, first selectman comment. The only thing I have is that Gary Barron had asked, when we first took office, I said to Gary, would you please look into getting a deputy EMD? Gary's in great shape, but none of us are getting any younger. And I wanted to make sure we had somebody ready to go when the time comes that Gary might step down, and he did. He's recommended to us Chief Steinhardt, who'd be willing to take the position. He's already done a little bit of training. So the Chief Steinhardt will be our deputy EMD. And then I think what the plan is that in a year or two, they'll switch positions. Gary will become the deputy and Chief will become the EMD. And then Gary eventually will go off into the sunset. But at least that way, we're covered as far as emergency director. So go ahead.
So that doesn't overlap at all with duties when there is an emergency where somebody needs to be one place and the chief needs to be a different?
It doesn't seem to be because, first of all, Gary's gonna be there for a few years, and then Gary can, as a deputy, can actually run the EMD spot while the chief's doing his chief. But I think what's gonna happen with Charlie, he's gonna eventually retire sooner instead of later. And when he does, then he would just have that position from that point on. But as long as they're working in tandem, I think they'll be fine. But I had the same question, Brett, as you did. That's all I have.
So, you want me to make a motion to move 7
Yeah, if we could switch,
You-
that way we can get Logan up a little
North
sooner.
Stonington Ambulance Association update on the agenda to item 6?
That'd be
Switch those
great.
around.
Okay, so the request is to take number 7, North Stonington Ambulance Association update, move it to number 6, and just drop all business down one spot.
Sure.
Okay.
Second.
I
So there's a mo-
second.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. So I'd like to introduce Logan, who's the president, Logan, of the administrator of the North Stonington Ambulance Association. I've asked him to come speak to us tonight and just let us know where we are in the, with the ambulance in town. I know that's over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of questions on what we were doing, how many calls we were making, as far as the equipment and so on. So Logan was nice enough to come in and he's given us give us an update. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Logan Taylor. I'm the administrator of North Stonington Ambulance Association. I was recently hired in last April when I took over as the administrator or slash supervisor position. In 2021, we had 809 calls for service. On record today, we had 802. So our call volume is going up as expected. Out of those 802 for the past 8 months, our ambulance has answered all 100% of all first due calls. And over the past 3 months, we have been able to get our second ambulance out to meet the needs of North Stonington. We've recently got our second ambulance out 5 times in the past 3 weeks. So the paid staff is doing their duty and they're staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And the volunteers come in or a per diem employee will come in and fill the second ambulance call as needed. I was tasked with doing some public outreach when I first came into the position. So we started doing vital clinics at the senior center once a month when they have their lunch. This year, we put on safety camp for the first time in several years that they have not done it. And safety camp is for the students of the residents of North Stonington, so they can go to other schools outside the area. But it's for the youth of the town. Basically, we offer first aid and CPR, and then the fire department also does do some fire prevention as well with them. And we only charge $20 for that, and that's just for the card cost. So that way everybody gets free training, but they also get the certificate. I'm currently working on a fall risk survey for the elderly population in North Stonington. So myself would go out and survey their home if they request it, obviously, to check for falls, like things that could be prevented for falls, adding handrails, rugs, non-grip slips to different objects, just to make the community safer as a whole. So that way we don't have to go and help somebody if we can teach them how to secure their home safely for their own well-being. We also do an emergency card. It comes in a red packet. It hangs on the refrigerator, gives all their medical history, medications, and allergies. So that way, if we're called to the home and they need emergency care and they're not able to respond or not able to answer us, we know what their medical conditions are. We know what their medications that they're currently on and their allergies. So we have something to go off of in treating them. At this point in time, we have 6 full-time employees that work Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. And then we have a handful of per diems that also help fill in our shifts. Most of our equipment is up to date and it works well. And our service is thriving at this point in time. So I have to give that tribute to my employees who show up, rain, snow, or shine, do the job.
And is there any questions by the selectmen of the Ambulance Association? None? Any questions from anybody in the audience about the ambulance association? Logan, I just want to say thank you for coming. And I noticed a big change in the ambulance in the last year. You are making most, if not all, the calls.
All of them.
Yep. thank
We're
you.
making 100% of all first due.
You are perfect. I think it's been going pretty well. The response times have dropped quite a bit,
Yes,
and I appreciate all that you do.
thank you.
Thanks for coming. And you can leave. You don't have to stay.
Thank you.
Okay, old business. So let's talk about A, demolition of the one-story 298 Norwich Wesley Road, the old middle school. So where are we right now? I gave you a list of where the expenditures are to date. As you know, the town voted to use $1 million of ARPA funding for this project. The bids range from the lowest bid of 689,000. The second bid was, I think, 1.2 million plus. The third bid was 1.2 million higher than plus. And then the last was 1.5 million. To date, you can see what we've spent on the plan. It's 818,000. So what are we spending that money on? If the bid was 689, trying to be transparent, the best thing to do would be to make a list of what we're spending the money on, what we've been up against. We hired a clerk of the works, which was the best thing we could have done to get started with. Bob Giovacini, he's been wonderful from STV, lives in Wesley. He's on the job 3 to 4 days a week, and we've been having regular meetings on Wednesday mornings. Best Tech, the contractor, has been also been doing a great job. They keep the site clean. We've got a lot of compliments on how the project's been going up to date. Some of the things that have not been going so well is the water line has to be below 42 inches below grade or it'll freeze. And we had hoped to just leave the water line where it was in one of the tunnels that ran along the building that was coming down. Just leave the tunnel in the ground, put some soft fill in there and leave it where it was. Fortunately, the pipes were not 42 inches below the ground. They were about 24 inches below the ground. So we had to go to Plan B, which is bringing in a new water line. It has to go around the building and into the school. So this building has water. Secondly, we found, they found when they were doing the excavation that in the basement area in the middle school, there was oil spillage, number 2 heating oil that had got into the ground. They've since pulled that out. They're doing testing on it now. We should know by Friday on how much is in there. But as far as the area that had to be excavated, it's within the guidelines that they said. They went 20 by 25 feet. Everything they found was within that. It didn't extend more. So they think it's just number 2 heating oil, and they think they have it all. So we'll have more information on that after Friday. Another thing that popped up was I think we spoke about this at the last meeting, the wall that's between the 1960 wing that's coming down and the entrance that was built in 1994. So you had where the central office is, which was built in 1964, and you had a wing that was coming up, it's built in 1960. They put in 1994 that entrance, that nice entrance you see when you come in. That's a freestanding entrance, which means that wall that we thought was going to be staying is part of the demolition. And we can't very well take that wall down because there would be no wall in the hallway. So right now we just put an RFP out. We had 4 people come in and do a walkthrough yesterday to get a new wall built up against that wall, because that wall has to stay. So we have to pin that wall to the part of the building that's staying. And because it was built in 1960, it doesn't pass for high winds and things like earthquakes, because that wasn't considered back. That was always on the West Coast, right? So now we're getting more earthquakes. The weather's been changing. That wall does not pass for that. So we have to secure that wall to make sure that it's up to grade as far as high winds and earthquakes. And we're building a second wall right up against that first wall. So as you walk out that door, everything's been filled, but the double doors were, the single door, the window, that's all been filled. It looks pretty good. They're going to wash it down. You'll barely be able to tell where the new brick and the old brick is. But what you can't see behind that is a mess. And that's why we had to put up a second wall up against it. Some of it's metal studs, some of it's cinder block, some of it's brick. And that's why we've had to go that route. We've had to bring the original architects, which was Rusty, in to look at it. They did the original drawings. Best Tech still has a role to play in this wall because as part of their project was to just do the infill and leave, but they can't because the wall would fall down. So they're not off the hook as far as getting the wall built or doing, helping the town and financially securing that wall and having it built. And AdCom is the one that's running the water now, AmCon is one that's running the new water line now from the street to this building. While we were doing the water line, we also disconnected the Wheeler Library from the water line because it used to come through the school and went to the Wheeler Library. Now the library is connected directly to Main Street, so they're on their own water. It's no longer connected through the school. That's it. There's some small things like we're using the hydrant right now for temporary water until the permanent water line's in. Had to put a backflow preventer on that. There was some work that had to be done on the HVA system. That was when they were doing the demolition, they would cut into that. And if you remember, we had no air conditioner in this room for a short time during the summertime. And those are just minor things that happen during things like demo. Also, there was a disconnection of the fire alarm for a short period of time and it had to be reactivated. But that's where we are. What's left is the price of the wall, which we'll know when the RFP comes in. And there'll also be a fee to take the contaminated earth that we have and move it off property. Once we know what's in it and how much is in it, then we'll be able to move it off property. If you have any questions, we'll take those.
So I think you answered the question that I was going to ask, because I see that the architect quote for the wall is almost 13,000, but that does not include the build of the wall, so that will be extra.
So the architectural fee there is, was to design the wall, which there was a wall design when Downs was gonna do it, but that design wouldn't have worked under these circumstances.
Okay.
So they'd come back and design the wall, plus they were here through early stages of how we're gonna deal with this, come up with multiple plans. We're here yesterday for the walkthrough. So every time, just like an attorney, every time they come out, that we're paying them a professional fee. And that's what's adding up to the $12,000. We did have 4 bidders that are bidding, and that bid closes on the 22nd of November.
Have you seen any of them? Any of
No, they haven't sent it. We're just still doing questions at this point. So questions have to be in by tomorrow at 4. We'll answer them by Friday. And then the 22nd, which is next Tuesday, the bids have to come in.
So the 2 outstanding things that will increase it over the 818,000 are to remove the contaminated soil off the property and then the build of the wall.
Yes,
As of right now, those are the only other additional costs we might see.
that's all we know. That's all we know about. I don't see, you can say, but we don't see anything else that could be. I mean, we've handled everything that's come our way. We've been able to handle it. But that's where we are.
Okay.
Brett, do you have any questions on it? Okay. So just, again, I wanted to make this public record so people understand where we are. I want to make you 2 selectmen know where we are. So if you're asked the question, you'll have this and we can explain. I've had a lot of people say, well, why is a part of the building still standing? It looks great, but why is that standing? And it's standing because we can't take that part down until we figure out how we're going to fix the wall situation. But we're working on the water line as right now is independent of that. And the excavating of the oil and the dirt, that's independent too. We're working on that right now. So the job is not completely at a standstill. Is there any question? There's no P there. Is there any yes, Pat? Can you use the microphone, please?
Bridge Road. I was wondering, is there gonna be another access to this building other than the one that's there now? Would that wall be a good place to have an access and go out to a parking lot so people can get into this building more easily?
There is another door that we're saving. So if you're walking down that hallway, it's on the right-hand side. It's the door where you've been here for graduation. It's the door where the graduates walk out of the building and march down. So that door is staying.
Okay.
It's a 3-foot metal door with glass in it. It's just almost all the way down on the right before you get to the central office.
All right, so it's more in this way so that if there's a parking area out there, people don't have to walk far.
And I'm hoping that's comes out of our discussion in the spring, that we will be reimagining how the parking will work. So it'll help us with both voting and meetings and also overflow parking for the library. I mean, the parking's gonna stay where it is now because we're just doing bare minimum to get to that point, and then we'll figure out how we want to reimagine this property. I agree. I did put the chairs out during the vote.
I know, but now you need wheelchairs, but there were 2 people in wheelchairs that got wheeled out.
Oh, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? None? Okay, old business number 2, appoint a tax relief committee. We did get, we now have 6 applicants. We said we wanted to be between 5 and 7. So we'll take another one. But speaking to the applicants, I just sent them an email explaining the situation that I'd like to appoint them, have the Board of Selectmen appoint them sometime after the first of the year, so they can get a full, they only have a 60-day window to come up with recommendations for the Board of Finance. They will be advisory to the Board of Finance, not the Board of Selectmen. So that gives them a full 60-day window. If we appoint them tonight, then they're gonna have Thanksgiving and Christmas and travel, and it's gonna be tough to book meetings. So as long as you guys are all right with that, we'll appoint those, and if we get a 7th between now and then, that'll be great too. Vacancies and appointments. There are 2 appointments that we do have to make this evening. We don't have to, but we should. One is the new tax collector, Zane Ring. I think you've heard me mention her. She's been in at least 3 or 4 times to set up her office and go through the files, and she's anxious to get started here. She starts on Monday, the 21st. So we are going to get her appointed tonight, and she's been in and she spent time with Christine and Susan and people in town hall. Antoinette, she knows Antoinette from a previous career, and she's going to be great. So I'd like
What's
to
her last name?
Ring, Ring, Ring. So go ahead.
I'm gonna,
I
make-
love you too.
Yeah, I will make a motion to appoint Zane Ring to our tax collector vacant position.
Okay, so we have a motion by Nicole, and a second by Brett Mastriani. Any discussion? Hearing none?
I'm thrilled with I think it was the right decision to go to full-time, and I think the quality of the person that we attracted, could not be happier with.
And the people that she's spoken to at length in town hall feel the same way, Nicole, so
Good.
that's great. Okay, so all in favor of appointing Zane Ring as our new full-time tax collector, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 3-0. Second appointment. So at the last POCD steering committee meeting, we know that Nate Rykott, who's our PDZO, is going on to bigger and better things. And so we have nobody in that position. We also know that our chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission is, has let us know that he would like to be relieved of those duties before the end of the year. So we felt we didn't have a lot of direction, and then we kept using the 2013 POCD as a guide. And finally, the discussion was, well, why wouldn't we ask the person that was involved in that in 2013, that knows the most about it? Or why would we ask her if she'd be willing to work as a consultant on this project and kind of head it up for us? So after a short discussion, because it didn't take long, the steering committee decided that it made a lot of sense for me to give Juliet a call and see if she'd be interested. And I mentioned that at our last meeting. The Board of Selectmen also voted to say yes. It makes sense to do that. Happy to report that I did reach out to Juliet. She was willing to take the position. I gave you a sheet of what the expenses would be to have her in that position. And I'd like to appoint Juliet tonight to the position of this consultant for this 2023 POCD, which is due on December 12th of next year.
I
There's a
second.
Motion by Brett, second by Nicole. Any future discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So Juliet, would you mind could you give us a little bit of an overview of what your thoughts are for the next short period of time? And see Madeline in the audience. Madeline, I was gonna call you and see if I could corral you into helping us with the steering committee. Is that something you're interested in? So is the answer still yes? Good. So you beat me to the punch. I don't have to call and ask you now. All right, thank you.
No, I'm glad you said yes, because I had suggested that if we were gonna do the neighborhood meetings again, which I really wanted to do, that you could help me with that, definitely. So the plan is to update your current plan, maybe not necessarily revisiting all the vision and the broader goals per se, but certainly open to that. But my thought was to definitely go through the survey again, definitely go through the neighborhood meetings again and the focus groups, see what has changed over the last 10 years, because actually a lot has happened over the 10 years that that we should brag about in this POCD, or at least identify. Update the data, only a few maps need to be updated. And then I think we'll be, in a position that we can decide whether we can spend some time on the more fun parts of, do we want to imagine a particular parcel and get some renderings done like we did last time, identifying opportunity areas and having some fun with that. And if you humor me, I do want to do a video component for the public hearing, because I think it'll be engaging, so instead of us standing up there giving you a report on each of the main components of the plan, what my thought was to have the folks from the Conservation Commission put together a script and a video for their section. So we'd be talking about natural resources and sort of looking at them through the town. That video clip could then be used on your website or wherever for marketing purposes or whatever they want to use it for, and do that for each of them, for each of the big things: housing, economic development, and education. You can have some fun with it, and it would just make the public hearing a little bit more fun, and could still have an actual plan. And then the executive summary would just be the data, the maps, and the goals and objectives in a nice book that you could then each commission member could have that as their work, something that's easy to refer to. That's my thought. I'd sort of put these hours out there, but that's more for me, like, don't spend more than this on that, because otherwise you're going to be spending more time than you have.
So since Lou will be stepping down as the chair, will you be working hand in hand with planning and zoning? Because actually this is their baby, right? It's not the
Right.
Board of Selectmen. So how do you imagine that to work?
So I did put in here like 3 P&Z workshops for when we get to a point, like maybe we want to talk about the results of the survey and the data together. So I imagine I'll get some of the work done and then go over the findings, so to speak, with Planning and Zoning Commission and the steering committee, obviously. And then when it comes time to doing the opportunity areas or talking about the renderings, again, meet with with planning and zoning. So at least 3 workshops, review the vision just to make sure we all are on board with the vision. So unless I hear differently from the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm open to suggestions too, so.
No, I just
So I
think
do
it's
envision that.
in the past, it's pretty much been their charge to
Mhm.
oversee the POCD. And just as long as they have a part of it, I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It's a little
We had
bit of a
steering
board.
committee before, and then we would just keep reporting back. I think we had members on that steering committee.
Okay. And Madeline, if you're going to be on the steering committee, we have a meeting coming up on the 21st, I think, right at 5:30. That's all right, but sure.
He's on the steering committee. He's on the steering committee, but he has remember the PCRL, their plan was part of the POCD, it was the second half of that document. So I haven't talked to him about where his commission is on updating that, but they're in charge of updating that section and then it'll get merged with ours.
But,
Same with, I
but
don't know,
just their
EDC.
section, right? Just their section. So it's basically, this is a planning and zoning and Juliet project. And each EDC has their section and commission, and the Conservation Commission of their section and so on. So it's he's in charge, his group's in charge of his own section, but not the whole thing.
Now, I was involved, very involved. I imagine I'm going to be again. but-
And P and Z has to ultimately vote on
Right.
approving the whole plan. Yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely, it's like the second half hour of the full plan. We just didn't put the housing plan and EDC plan document into that document.
Julia, I just had a question on here. I know with the 2013 plan, prior to that EDC, we did that. We had a consultant do a whole study for us. Is that something that's gonna need to be redone, or does EDC have to do something with that? Because I know that played a role into the POCD a little bit.
Yeah, the data, I took the data. So I'm going to do that data analysis again. So EDC is welcome to use that as well. I didn't actually know where they were with their own plan update. So I know I did their housing plan right before I left.
Yeah, I don't think they're.
I don't know
working on
what
it
you've
yet.
done.
I thought they are.
At the last EDC meeting, they divided up the sections of it and they're reviewing what was done in the last one. And then they're gonna go through it together and figure out what needs to be addressed to change moving forward. They have,
So we do that we do a focus group on economic development. It's heavily represented in that survey. So I think I'll treat it like the Conservation Commission. Let's get all the data together and then get together and see who can use what or who wants to do what.
Yeah, I just know we had that
Yeah.
Pinnacle group did that whole
Yeah,
report for us.
the
and
data
was like-
that they
and
got,
I
I'm
think that
gonna
was
get
like $20,000 or something back then, but
25,000. So you don't need to, the data's cheaper now, for one thing. But if we're not gonna change a lot of that vision, that whole first bit, then, we don't need to. do the consultant. And you have extra money. But I didn't take all that, but you do have a little wiggle room if you did want to hire a consultant for a day, or, for an event.
Nicole, any questions from you? No. Julia, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And man, then I'll let you know the next meeting. I think it's again, the 21st. I can email it if you want. I think it's the 21st at 5:30 and we've been holding them in the conference room in the new town hall. So that's a Monday, the 21st at 5:30. Christina, does that sound right? Okay. Yes. Ed Learned is there from P and Z. Sam Sharenzi is there from EDC. I'm there from the Board of Selectmen. Stephanie Mastriani is there from the Board of Ed. Christine Dias is there, representing the Admin and Finance Director. And who am I missing? Jeff Nelson has been added. And Bill Ricker is on it. That's pretty much it. And now, and you're on it. If you choose to be. Right, right, thank you. 7D. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat. Pat, can you use this one? Because we're recording the meeting and no one will know what you said.
When we did the 2013, when we had the planning and zoning official work with the zoning board to do the new regulations, and then we hired a consultant to review everything. So I'm not quite sure, what is your job description? Are you doing the job description of the planning and zoning person? Am I still gonna have a consultant, or I thought a consultant was the same position we had before? What's the job description? So you're not a planner and zoner, so you won't be doing the meetings and all that other stuff the planning and zoning person did. So you're just gonna come in pretty much do the role of that consulting firm that we hired.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, 7D opera funding. So as we did with the 298 building, again, trying to be as transparent as possible, we asked Christine, actually Christine comes up with these ideas, not me. So Christine thought it'd be a good idea to take the opera funding and keep listing and report this back as we did at the last meeting. So every time there's a Board of Selectmen meeting, we'll go through the opera funding, where we are, what monies are still there. Like last meeting, we put money back in. Hopefully we'll be putting money back in after the demolition project's over. And if there's new requests, they'll go through us. And then we'll either go through the Board of Finance and or a town meeting, depending on the amount. So that's just an up-to-date list of COVID grant funds that we've spent to date.
Do we know how much the EDC has given out in there? What 100,000 was, right?
Right, so I think it was 33,000 in the first batch. I think they just awarded two more. Was it two more, Christine?
Yeah, they approved 2 more. They've given out $56,818.91.
Excellent.
And I think there's a third batch coming because some people just brought theirs in.
Good, thank you.
And Ivana's been working with them on very nicely with that as far as getting information and sending people back and having them come back again with additional information. So. Brett.
But I just, as I look at some of the ones that were processed through in the dollar values, I worry on the process a little bit, from when I first worked on this program and looking for, North Stonington businesses that are functioning in the community and things like that. And we went up to $10,000 as a max. I am a little concerned about the dollar values just because someone requested that's what we give them. There was one that their financials, we gave them pretty much half of what they made all year. The past 2 years, we gave them in one grant. So I was concerned about it. And I was also concerned to see if we made sure that we could legally give them federal dollars, because there are some industries that are exempt from federal COVID dollars in regards to the cannabis industry and what products that they're using. And that, so I just want to make sure that somebody's going through those processes still, that Nate's gone.
Well, I can say that the initial vetting out was done by Christine and Ivana, who then sent it to the EDC, and then the EDC at their meeting discusses each applicant, and they go through they get copies of the application, they go through them and questions and answers at the time. So ultimately, the EDC votes to either accept or not accept a candidate, and not all the candidates have been accepted, as far as I know. You might want to, we can let you know when the next EDC meeting is if you'd like to sit in. I'm more than happy to have you there to listen to the process, just so you'll see that is being vetted out, I think.
Well, I did see how it works, but also pretty much everyone that worked on this program to start is gone, except for Sam was there for a few meetings, but the intent of it seems to have changed just a little bit, but I worry about the dollar values they give out just based on the request. And, there is the option to lower that dollar value you give some of these companies based on what they are. So to try to keep the program going for the next little bit, but I will go to the next.
I just think being, you were the past chair for a number of years, what, 12 years, 13 years?
Yeah.
So I'd love to have you go and almost be like a liaison to the Board of Selectmen. You know more about it than I do. Actually, you and Nicole know more about it than I do because you were on the board also. Please go and let them know what your thoughts are, what your concerns are.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we get the impression that their intent is to try and use the entire 100,000? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But not give it away frivolously either.
Right.
No, but I think, we heard loud and clear as we did dedicate ARPA funds to other things that to help businesses in our own town that suffered from COVID. That's what we want. I mean, it's like the purest sense of what to do with that money. So I just want to make sure, and if it lasts a while and there are other people that are coming forward, I know that it takes a while to get the word out to people and to get people to actually do the application, but I'd love to see them be able to use the entire 100,000 for
That's a-
our businesses.
Some of the pushback I've heard so far is that, what we're asking them for, and we're asking for a lot.
Yeah.
But if we're giving someone $8, $9, $10,000, if you go to a bank, they're gonna ask for a lot.
Yep.
You can't just come in and say, can I have 10,000? We say, yes, here it is. And so we have had some people come in, give them a list of what they need to bring back, and they don't come back. They think it's too much.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
we
well,
have to
it's-
do
It's
that.
free money, so,
Right. And we're not asking for anything different than other towns or any
Yeah.
other grant.
yeah.
I mean,
Just
one,
pretty
I won't mention the name, but one business in town's been in 3 or 4 different times. No, you need this. Now go back and now you need this. And they keep coming back, I guess, because and that tells me they really need the money.
Yeah.
Obviously, they keep coming back. It doesn't scare them away, but maybe some of the people that didn't maybe need the money as much didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
So, okay. We did the ambulance association town environmental engineer discussion. So this is a little bit tricky. We talked about a grant with the storm mitigation grant. And we talked about working with Fuss and O'Neill, and then we know we went to the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance voted. They actually a tie vote, which means it was a no vote, to use the $7,000 to use towards this grant. I've since spoken with the COG to see if they can help us and to lower that number down. We've got $2,500 in Selectmen engineering available, which is not a lot. But I have no intent for that $2,500. We could use it for this. If I could have Fuss and O'Neill work with the COG in unison, and maybe if we can do it for that amount of money, then we could get that project moving forward. The thing is, there's no guarantee that if Fuss and O'Neill works with the COG and we do the application and we get it in and we get awarded, we'll say a $70,000 grant. There's no guarantee at that point that Fuss and O'Neill would then get that $70,000 project. We would have to go to an RFP and it'd be open to anyone. So that's in order to hit the timeline, which is December 1st, that's probably the way we'd have to fast track this. There's a couple of options. One is we could do an RFQ, so that's a request for qualifications. And we can send it out to any environmental engineers and get that information back to us. So let's say we were able to get this grant in, and the COG, Council of Governments, were able to help Fuss and O'Neill to get this in for the amount of money we are able to spend without going to the Board of Finance. At that point, we could then put an RFQ out while we're waiting for the state to tell us, you're gonna get a grant for $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. We could vet out a qualified environmental engineer that would say, we want to make these people our town's environmental engineers, which means then down the road, if we did get a project, we wouldn't have to put an RFP out for that. We'd already assigned this group as, it may not be Fuss and O'Neill, it may be somebody else that comes in with a better offer to the town and say, hey, we'll do it for this. But at least if we have an environmental engineer that we've hired as our environmental engineers, and we do any projects, they're the ones that are gonna get the work. So that's another option. And Christine, was there another way we were gonna look at this? Or was, because we can't just do an RFQ now, because we never have it done in time for the December 1st cutoff. So it's either try to talk to the COG, see if we can get Fuss O'Neill to do it for the $2,500, if they're willing to take that chance. And also they would be probably throw their names in the hat as far as an RFQ to become our environmental engineer, but there's no guarantee that we would select them. Once selected, though, then they would have our work going forward. The bottom line is, in my opinion, is the $7,000 that we could have spent made a lot of sense to, I think, the Board of Selectmen, and unfortunately didn't make as much sense to the Board of Finance. But that's past at this point. So moving forward, it would make sense if we can come up with a way to not lose that money. Someone mentioned to me today, said, So I don't like things shoved down our throats. Things are going too fast. Why, how do we know we need this? And a lot of these plans end up on shelves and that's true. And I said, but why should I let our tax dollars always be spent by somebody else? Our tax dollars go into the pool in Hartford and then Bridgeport and Stamford and New Haven and New London and all these other towns and cities spend our tax dollars on their initiatives. And poor little North Stonington hardly ever gets money from the state. So here's a chance for us to get money like we did in the steep grant. And why not take those tax dollars from other places and bring them into North Stonington, use them for flood mitigation and working, fixing culverts and dams and so on to protect our town. As beautiful as it is with the rivers and streams and lakes, we know also how damaging it can be as it was in 2010. So basically, I just want to have a quick discussion on what the Board of Selectmen thought, and I'll actually open this up to the public too. What the Board of Selectmen thought as far as maybe having me call Boston O'Neill, see if we can work out something with the money I have to spend, which is only $2,500, working with Sam Alexander at the Council of Governments, try to get this application in which would be the track 2 application by December 1st. And then do an RFQ after the fact to see who we'd want to hire as our environmental engineer with, again, no guarantees to Beth and her company that they would be the ones that we decided on. So just our thoughts.
So would COG give us like a matching amount to help us get no?
So
So
they would write the grant and Fossil O'Neill would provide them with the expertise as far as the grant.
So COG would write the grant. And we would give COG $2,500, or are we giving Fussin O'Neill the $2,500 to help COG write the grant?
There'd be a fee from the Council of Governments and there'd probably be a fee from Fussin O'Neill. They're not gonna do it for zero.
Yeah,
So I have to find out what kind of dollars that they're willing to do this together with us. $2,500 may not even come close.
yeah, I was just gonna.
So it might be 5,000 and I don't have that other $2,500 to
Yeah.
spend. So it's just a shot in the dark at this point to see if we can, if you want to even go down this route, and if you do, I'll start this process tomorrow. And then as far as the RFQ, we can do that anytime in the next.
So with the RFQ, does that, do we have them on retainer? Is there a cost out of pocket? Or is that just that environmental engineer company ABC sits in the wings and waits for us to say, we got the grant money, come on in and help us design?
So let Christine explain, because we just did this with sewers a few years back, so.
I don't think you're wrong.
You're right. All right. So what we're doing is basically kind of treating this like we did the wastewater. Basically, it was an agreement for an on-demand wastewater company. That's the wrong way to phrase it, but whatever. So we did an RFQ because we knew we were going to be doing some different sewer studies so that we would be ready if we were going to do any sort of sewer projects. So we did the RFQ, we got all proposals in, and we selected Weston and Sampson as the firm that we were going to work with. Then we knew we were going to do a plan, so they were the ones we worked with for that plan. So basically, it's like having a town attorney. It's like having any other service. You don't pay for it unless you use it. So we would find out from any of these firms what their qualifications are, what kind of projects they've worked on, what their hourly rates are. And those would be the things that we're comparing to select who would be our town environmental engineer. Then if we had a project come up, whether it was this project or something else that was grant funded or funded by the state, we would be able to say, okay, we already know, we've already gone through the selection process and you are our qualified engineer and we're going to work with you for this project.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And this is for the track too, so this is for a more in-depth, we're one step ahead of getting federal dollars for it compared to that last grant.
Yeah. So it's a
Um,
big if, it sounds like, because she was going to do it Fussin O'Neill was going to do it for 7,000, right? And that was for the track 1.
Yeah.
So
But she was the one that found out that we can do track 2 based on our 2017 study.
2017, yeah.
okay.
So I think she sent me a message and said that the woman from DEP, after reviewing that, thinks that we're ready for track 2.
Okay.
Um,
So,
so
yeah.
But technically, we don't need to do an RFQ, correct? Because it is professional services.
If we don't do an RFQ, then whenever we're ready to move forward on a project, we would have to go out to bid to figure out who's going to do that project.
Even for professional services.
Because it's not just designing it, it's more actually doing the work, the hands-on work. We have to go through some sort of review and selection process. I'm actually looking, so I stop sounding so silly when I'm talking about the on-call wastewater consulting and engineering services was what we had done for an RFQ before. And it makes it more transparent to everyone that we've gone through the appropriate process to select whatever firm we're going with.
But that didn't work out so well for us with that water study through
I'm talking about the process.
the
Not-
process, not
not
the results of that.
Product.
All right.
process.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we'd be silly not to try. We have
Correct.
dedicated money in the budget for engineering, and we can keep our fingers crossed that COG and they can do it for 2,500, but
Did we return that planner money to COG? That other one through the COVID planning?
Yes.
We did.
Or we didn't return, we just didn't have to pay any additional.
Right, but did we
We returned it to the.
turn
ARPA
it back to
bucket.
ARPA? Okay. I thought then we might have a little more in there.
but the whole thing, because Board of Finance voted it down technically, is that we can't supplement anything out of the ARPA fund.
I don't want to try to circumvent the Board of Finance and by
Yeah.
any means, so.
And I certainly don't want certainly don't want them thinking that we're circumventing. Although I truly do believe that there was not good clarification with what we were asking, when it came to the vote, but the vote is the vote.
And that was through ARPA funding. So it's not like by them saying, no, we
Yes.
shouldn't push this project forward. But it also, I mean, I would leave ARPA open for a discussion because it is a different track. We're one step ahead of where we thought we'd be. And with more detailed, more time for them to look through things, it might work out too, but I think we need to get it moving.
The deadline's
So-
December 1st. They don't have any meetings scheduled between now and then, so I think we're in the same spot we were in with the timetable last time.
With Board of Finance.
Yeah.
What is the line item with the 2,500 again?
Is it 26, B 26?
Selectmen's engineering expenses.
Okay.
It's,
I don't need the number. I just wanted
I want to say
terminology.
So what do you need from us to move forward?
Not, just to let me know that you want to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll start those phone calls tomorrow, and see if we can get it down to something manageable that we can use within the budget.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we get it out there that this is for long-term planning for flooding and for lots of things, that it wasn't a short-term ask when we went through. I know it seemed quick when we went through Board of Finance, but this is for long-term planning and safety of the town. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any comment from the audience on that? Pat?
But I'm not quite sure. After these studies are done, how do you know that when you need a service or whatever it is, that those studies will have to be done all over? I mean, like you said, this water pollution control thing
So-
didn't turn out to be so good. So how do you know when you need those services that it's not gonna have to be repeated or updated or anything that is requested is?
Yeah,
has
so
changed?
Pat, we wouldn't be actually asking them for anything other than their services and to offer what their qualifications are. We have the plan, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we have the plan in our head of what we want to do with the project. So we're going to choose the best company for that. But when it comes time to actually ask them to put the proposal together, they'll be in the moment putting that plan together. It's not like they're gonna come up with a plan for us and then we're gonna put it on the shelf and then we're gonna dust it off in 2 years from now when we actually get some grant money. We're actually just choosing a company that is going to give us the best service for what we might want to do down the future. And then in the future, we then engage them and they come in and they put the proposal together and the study together for us. So they're not doing anything for us right now, except waiting in the wings for us to go to them. Did I represent that?
If the,
And
how do you know they still be in existence at that time? Or how do you know some of these studies haven't already been done, the environmental studies? I mean, when we had the 2010 flood, we built a new bridge and we built a dam. So I'm sure FEMA, before they even allowed anything to be dug,
there's a,
we updated our FEMA maps too, when we did
Right.
the POCD, we had updated FEMA maps.
so Pat, this is working off of studies that have been done and updating. So there's a 2017 hazard mitigation plan that was done, and this would be done to, again, update because things keep changing rapidly with the climate. And to just go back to what Brett said about the on-call wastewater consulting and engineering not working out, it's more that if we wanted to tie into Stonington, that was what we were looking at the time, it was going to cost a lot more than we anticipated, and we're just not going that route. It's not that it wasn't worth doing the study. It was that we could find out in tangible figures how much it was going to cost. So sometimes we need to do these studies to find out if it's feasible to do any of these plans.
Well, climate, we had like 5 or 8 years of drought.
Sometimes there's a lot of water, sometimes there's not.
And
So
this is planning for the resiliency plan that's all grant based. So the first grant is 100%, no match. So it's almost silly for us not to go through with it. And then we'll have that plan, and then we can go to federal dollars to implement those plans if we choose to. If that makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
and a lot of these
Thank you.
programs, once they go through the first time and there's no match, then the next time it's a 20% match or a 50% match. So we're better off trying to get in the first round because we know already that there is no match required from the town.
Pat, just to make you feel better, it's taken me, this is the 3rd meeting that we've discussed this. It's taken me 3 meetings to understand it as well, as far as the whole multi-pronged process of. So for me, $2,500 of money that's already set aside in a line item for something like this specifically for completely free money in the future, it's for us, it's actually a really great thing for the town to be able to potentially get free grant dollars to help mitigate flood control in our town.
Yeah, and the first step is to assess our vulnerability of flooding.
Yeah.
On the Chinook, all over. So it's silly in my mind that for short dollars in the front to get that study done 100% paid for. So we don't have to fund that out of our local tax dollars eventually.
Are there any other questions, comments?
So we don't need to vote or move it forward. We,
No, I'll work on this tomorrow.
Support. Good.
And I'll get back to you and let you know what my findings are.
thank you.
Okay. Result of planning and zoning 8/24 review, Wichita Hill town-owned properties. So I was at the planning and zoning meeting and there was public comment. I kept track. Public comment was, I believe there was 12 comments, 10 were do not sell the land, 2 were to go ahead and sell it. Attorney Avina was there and I asked the planning and zoning commission to give me a recommendation, so I could bring it back to you. They actually went one person at a time on planning and zoning, and it was a 4-1, don't sell the land. So if you have 4-1 against selling the land, and not using it keeping it for later use for the town, wherever that use may be. And you have a public comment of 10-2. I think in my opinion, it'd be silly as a board of selectmen to not listen to that information that came from planning and zoning, which they are the experts on planning and zoning, not us. And that's why we go for a review. Another caveat since then is I spoke to the potential people that wanted to buy this property. They were at the planning and zoning meeting. They felt at this time there's way too many hurdles for them to overcome, and they withdraw their ask to buy the property. So as of right now, if they hadn't, I would have recommended the board of selectmen just adhere to what the Planning and Zoning Commission had recommended, to not sell the property, to leave it in as town-owned property, to be decided down the road on what the use would be ultimately. But with their withdrawal now, it's kind of a moot point. So the property will be owned by the town until someone approaches the town to say, we want to do this, or we want to do that with the property. Okay, pretty cut and dry.
Yep.
Okay, is there any comment? Yes. Hi,
How are you?
I'm great.
We're happy with that information. We do have a question, though. There were independent engineers out on Wrights Road, which is our actual driveway. Question if it was town-owned or privately owned. I think we've learned conclusively it's town-owned road. So we also learned that the Eastern Pequot Nation is the person or group that initiated this survey. Engineers on the road, as well as wetlands people were there as well. Can anyone give us any information as to what their plan is and or where we can go to get that?
Well, actually, I have a meeting with our attorney tomorrow, a conference call on that. Was not aware they had engineers on the property.
Yeah.
It's a road it's a town semi-maintained road. We don't maintain it to the same level we do as a town road. As a matter of fact, Christine, that's not even officially a town road, correct? So it's a road in town. It's not a town road, and there's a difference. So we don't maintain, in 2016, at a town meeting, the town voted, I think it was 8 roads that we decided that we were going to maintain to different levels. Patricia, Cedar, that road, and there's a few other ones. And so we will grade it once in a while,
Yeah.
plow it. But if there was people on the road, it wasn't town people, so it might have been people from the tribe that were doing that,
They were professionals. They weren't
hired by the tribe.
hired by the tribe, from
So
what we've learned. But if the town doesn't own it, who does?
well, the town owns the town owns the road, it owns the property, but it's
Okay.
not it's not a town road, but recognized town road per se.
Okay.
But we
so
own all the property around it, so
You own the property around it, including the road.
yes.
Okay, that's good. All right, so is there do we know what's going on? Like, what is their plan?
If you've been following in the day at all, and this is Native American month of November, the Eastern Pequots are looking to get recognized as a tribe. They were recognized in the past,
Yeah, and then
and
lost.
they lost, and they are looking to go back and try to get recognized again.
Okay. Where do we go to learn how that affects the people who live that are not of that nation?
I don't know where we can go to learn at this point. Again, I have a meeting tomorrow with our attorneys out of Washington DC. Myself, the mayor of Ledyard, and the first select woman of Preston. We've worked together as 3 towns long before I was here. Those 3 towns have worked together back in the Mashantucket Pequot days with Nick Mullane. And we're just trying to make sure that we're protecting the town's interest. So there's nothing really to be, at this point, it's just an effort on their part to get recognized again. And it's an effort on the town to monitor that situation and protect the town's rights.
Okay, we also have learned that it's an attempt to widen the road. To be. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I think we spoke to the assessor and he actually said it was a town-owned road. So I'm just a little confused, but you've clarified me on that. So maybe I'll.
So
give
you
them a
talked to
call.
the assessor, and the town's not trying to widen that road.
No. He said it was, that's how we learned it was the Indian Nation.
Well, they
Who
wouldn't,
initiated it.
they wouldn't be able to widen the road that's part of town property. It's not their property.
So then why would they have the survey?
They may be doing, again, just a guess, they might be doing a survey to get themselves positioned that if they were recognized and they wanted to do something with that property, but they're probably just trying to get their ducks in a row to see what the future could hold for them.
What he had shared with me, the assessor, excuse me.
This is our
sorry.
town assessor?
The town.
Darrell?
Yes, yes. It was very nice and informative. And he said that they're looking to expand it 47 feet from the center.
This is all news to me. I'll talk to Daryl tomorrow. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so that's why we're also here, because of the number 9 issue. And then I wanted to bring this up because we just bought up in that area and we're so thrilled to be here, and this is where we want to retire. So our son is in Stonington, so we're very passionate and emotional about anything that's gonna
So,
change that tranquility up there.
so I can tell you is the town's been monitoring this for the last year since I've been on board. And we've, sent letters and we pay attorney fees and to keep an eye on things.
Yeah.
What you're just saying now is news to me. I don't know anything about that.
Okay, and how do we as well stay informed? Just make phone calls to the town as things progress? Because it seems like it's hard to get any information on.
And it's also
What's
tough,
happening.
and sometimes it's also tough to, because we're talking with, legalities.
Yeah.
It's also tough to sometimes let you know exactly what's going on because it's things that are tied up in the legal process. So I can just tell you this, from my point of view, is that, the town's doing everything in their power to protect all our citizens in the land that's owned by the town today.
Yeah, like I'm also reading a book my electrician Harry
Oh,
gave
boy.
me.
Which one?
The one, without reservation.
Perfect. That will give you nightmares.
It's a nice jaw dropper. So, of course, we just don't want to lose our property that we just bought
Mhm.
because of a federal recognition that, they could potentially take.
I would just tell you, I'm working in your best interest.
Thank you, sir.
I promise.
Bob,
Bob,
sorry.
Yes.
can I just clarify, currently, right now, legally, the Eastern Pequots do not own any land outright up on Winterchog, correct?
The only land they have is the land that the state has given them as their reservation land, which is state-owned property.
And can you refresh my memory on where that is?
It's at the top of Wintershog. It's after the properties that were just in question as far as people buying them.
Yeah.
It was past that. There's 3 other properties, I believe, and then it's past that. So it's a state reservation that the state gave the Eastern Pequots to live on, but it's state property as far as I know.
Right. That's what we learned as well. I'm so sorry. I came back with a quickie.
Hey, go ahead.
Because this nice lady said something to me that questioned it. Wrights Road, comes to the 3 of our properties. But there's a Wrights Road continues through to Lantern,
Lane Hill Road.
and they let that go away. The nation.
Right.
So they used to come and go from that side, which it brings to the edge, I believe, of Lantern Hill.
Right.
Their reservation. So I'm just wondering why that they used Wrights Road or continue to use Wrights Road as town property to get in and out. Obviously, they need
Yeah.
road, so do we to get in and out. But it was, a whole away.
Right. So Wrights Road, the part that you're talking about, because we have citizens living on Wrights Road up to where you are.
Yeah.
We've maintained that better than the Eastern Pequots have maintained their portion of it, which is on the reservation, which goes down the Land
So
Hill
there's
Road.
like, that's a mute point. They can just do that and then just use the town because their land is town.
No, their land is state.
State owned, right?
Yeah.
But that's not a state road. It's a town road-ish.
State property.
State property for them, but Wrights Road is not.
Is town property.
Town property
Only up to the reservation.
is right. So
Once it hits,
maybe I'm not being clear.
so once the
Why
Wrights
don't
Road
they-
hits
yeah.
reservation, it's no longer a town road.
Yes, once it hits there, but what, the fact that they just closed it off and they automatically got the use of Wrights Road as coming and going, or
They can use Wrights Road. It's
they
a,
can
yeah, sure.
That'll be right away.
It's just a right away. They can use it.
right away.
is it worth writing a letter to them to see what they were doing? Because it is town property and there's a right of way, I'm sure, but it's still town property that they're
Well,
surveying.
it sounds like our assessor knows more about it than I know, so I guess I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow and find out what he knows.
Yeah, cause I'm looking at it on the map and it looks like. No, I don't see that part, but, I mean, it's all town property up until your property, yep. Yeah,
Yeah, there's utilities and a skinny road that they are potentially looking to make 47 feet wide. So all the utilities would have to be.
So I don't think anything can happen to the road without the town's approval.
I would have to agree, Nicole.
So wouldn't they have needed permission for the surveyor? Two of them, the wetlands guy and then the engineers.
So again, I'll talk to Daryl because he didn't get they didn't get permission from me, so.
Because there's pink, the wetlands guy did all the pink work, strings, and the other guys were there for 3 days.
Definitely something we're gonna follow up.
Why don't you-
Thank you
Yeah,
kindly.
why don't you, could you give me your name and number again?
Patricia Oaks, OCHS 167D, Winterchog Hill Road.
oh, you're right at the end there too.
We're right at the, well, actually Franny's at the end, touching the reservation. Linda's right after me, touching the reservation, and we're not.
And you're touching town property.
We're touching that 48 acres.
Patricia, what's the best phone number to get? Well,
203-994-6777.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else about Winter? Sure, Jennifer. I didn't even see you sneak in.
Good evening. I wanted to open a preliminary conversation about affordable housing uses on a small portion of the property that P and Z recently decided not to sell at Winterchog Hill. Again, very preliminary, just a few words. Connecticut has a housing shortage. It is the #1 priority of the State Department of Economic Development, and that is noteworthy. The construction industry suffered during years of high unemployment during this failure of the banking system, and this led to a shortage of new homes. Added to this, southeastern Connecticut will soon face a housing crisis. When expanding workers and suppliers for a new class of submarines looks for new houses over the next 10 years. In North Stonington, we need to embrace a culture of growth to welcome new residents. Otherwise, our future workforce will not be able to afford to live here. And that includes new teachers coming into our school system. It includes workers in town hall and others who want to start families here as ordinary working people. The average fixed rate for a 30-year mortgage is higher now than at any month this century. Affordable housing should be the centerpiece of our new plan of conservation and development. It's good for the town to leverage state and federal grants. It's good for the economy. It's good for taxpayers. At Winterchog, if we think about 8 acres for affordable housing, that will in no way prevent residents from enjoying 10 times that amount of space for other uses at Winterchog. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, moving on to number 10. If there was a Marion, I would say that I let Jennifer go, but this should be part of public comment, because actually we were talking about Winterchog Hill and we're talking about that particular 824. So can you just save that to public comment? Yeah, I didn't want to stop you in the middle, Jennifer, but I didn't know where you're going with that, but thank you. So purchasing policy review. Again, we've asked, I guess, to have this on at each meeting, has been discussed. Brett, I usually let you take the lead on this. Is there something that you wanted to discuss?
I'll just bring it up that our highway department brought it to you, Bob, that 1,500 was low for them to be able to get bids in a timely manner to be able to move things forward, such as tires for their trucks tend to cost more than $1,500 nowadays. I didn't find much in other towns that had a different limit for the highway department. But it might be something that we want to adjust up a little bit, to either 4,000 or 5,000. I wouldn't go more than that, but I would still want to stress that we should be looking around for quotes and getting the best possible prices when we purchase these things. Even though we changed this number, it's concerning to me that we might move away from getting the best number for some of these
And I
services.
think maybe it happened in the past, but I think there's a lot more emphasis on it now. A lot of it's because you brought a lot of this up, and I know today Donnie was calling around looking for the price of oil. So it's maybe it's not something that the town did as good a job as they could have in the past, but now we seem to be vetting out almost everything we buy, unless it's something small that we have to run to the store and get and come back. But I think raising this to a more manageable number is not going to take the importance of looking at numbers. Everything's so expensive now, we just can't afford to go with who we've always bought from. And I think the highway foreman knows that. We try to instill that in other departments, also our IT department. And there's a lot more thought process to buying now, rather than just buying from the same old company we've always bought from.
And I should clarify it that it's purchasing policy number 3. B, where it says purchases between 1,500 and 19,999 must be purchased based on at least 3 written quotations. And purchases between 10,000 and 19,999 must be approved by the first selectman. So the only thing I can think of is putting an addendum on there for just the highway department. I don't think we want to change it for all the departments in town. Of raising that minimum.
I'm okay raising the minimum to like 3, but why would we just limit it to the highway department?
I think it's just the nature of what they buy, because the highway department is buying things almost daily, it seems, because you never know what's going to break on a truck, what has to be fixed, where IT can kind of plan ahead, other departments can kind of plan ahead, they know what's coming. But with highway, it's always like reacting to a situation.
Okay.
So I think it's important that we give him more leeway to be able to make purchases, that he has to get done right away. He doesn't have time to call 3 people if he's got to get something today, because there's a tire just got blown on one of the big trucks or whatever happens to be. So I would agree with Brett. I think would make sense to give him some more leeway to raise it. Whatever that number is up to whatever you want to decide on, but I'm not opposed to doing it with the highway department, but not other departments. They seem to have less emergencies.
Okay.
So what number? 5 makes me a little nervous.
I wouldn't go to 5. I'm okay with 3 or 3,500.
I'd like to hear 4. Go hear 4. Now be kind of splitting the difference, right? So I just think, seeing what he buys on a regular basis, he's in the office every day. And again, I don't think we need to go to 5, but I think doing something like 4, we get most things done.
And I think, yeah, I would go to 4. 5 I was uncomfortable with, but I think what this does is, as long as we stress that we still would like this done. I heard a story today that they called about some tree work, and one company was 5,000, and because of this, they started calling them, the next guy was 1,200. So I'd hate to see that in the past, they would have just said, oh, okay, let's just go with that.
But I think the good news is they're making the calls.
Exactly. So this is starting to work.
I'm fine with 4.
Okay, great. So, how do we need to do a motion there, Brett?
I guess we'd make a motion to add to policy B, an addendum for the highway department limit 4,000 to 19,999. Would need at least 3 written quotations.
I'll second, sorry.
Second, okay.
Yeah.
So with that addendum, as presented by Selectman Mastriani, is there any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Wait,
Oh.
so can it just read, the highway department must obtain quotes for purchases between $4,000 and $19,999?
Yeah,
Simplest forms.
but anything over 10, they still have to go through the
Yep.
first select. Okay.
Okay. With that said, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 3-0. Nicole, do you want to handle the minutes?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting minutes, held on October 25th, 2022 at 6:30 PM at the North Stonington Education Center and via Zoom as written.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Second set of minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen special meeting on November 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 PM at the North Stonington Education Center as written.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Bob, I do want to just say that I think that we should try and have, boards and commissions get minutes in, and approved in on their agenda. I just, there are some boards and commissions that have outstanding minutes out there, and I just think that there should be, maybe an email to each chair, just to make sure that they're getting those in a timely manner.
So I
and
could send a
posted.
friendly email, but as you know, the Board of Selectmen don't have a pull when it comes to EDC, planning and zoning, Board of Finance. So at the tri-board meeting on December 12th, we can discuss at least the
Yeah,
Board of Ed
if
and the
we
Board
could
of
just-
Finance.
Yeah, I think if we can maybe just put it on as a very quick agenda item for, the tri-board, that might be.
I'll mention it to Christine because she'll be chairing that particular meeting on the 12th.
And
And there's also state statute that they have to maintain.
There is, but it's just the role that the selectmen, we can again suggest, but it's
Yeah.
not something I can tell them they have to do.
And the town clerk is very quick to email people and say, do you have the minutes? So she does send
Yeah.
those emails out and reminds people.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, Mary Ann, would you like to do public comment?
Like to applaud the Planning and Zoning Commission for voting not to sell the Winnetonka Hill property. It is so valuable to the town for open space, as well as the possible use of a portion of that land for affordable housing. As you all know, if you've been following the day and their housing lab articles, North Stonington has the lowest number of affordable housing in New London and Wyndham County. So portion of that land on Winnetonka Hill could be used for affordable housing. The 2013 Plan of Conservation and Development said that there was a lack of deed restricted affordable housing, and that was what we should be working for in 2013. As we are now working toward the new plan of conservation and development, that will only be coming up again because the town has not heeded the will of the people as expressed in the POCD. So we would hope that part of that land that's being preserved for town use can be used for affordable housing. All of the reasons that Jennifer suggested or mentioned, the need for housing for ordinary working people. We're not talking about people who don't have jobs. They have jobs, we all have cars, but they cannot afford the prices currently, or even back then, the prices for housing. I will pass out, I won't go through all of this, but I will pass out to you a rationale to use a portion of that land on Winnetonka Hill for affordable housing. Thank you for listening and thank heavens it was preserved.
Thank you.
Good for you, Bob.
Marianne, I just wanted to say, never, more than right now, it's really hit home for me. You know that my daughter and her husband, and their 1-year-old, are desperately looking to come back into North Stonington and raise their child in North Stonington, go to North Stonington schools, and they cannot touch a thing right now. I mean, actually right now, or probably even prior to the inflation in the housing market. So it really hits home for me as well, because I desperately want my 1-year-old grandson close to me.
And if we had housing available for that workforce that's coming in, that Electric Boat is hiring, it would only add vitality, diversity to our town. And, you know, the statistics show that people who move into affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing, become residents of the town forever. I mean, maybe they move on out of their deed restricted home, but they stay in town. And we desperately need that kind of citizen in our town. So I'll just pass this out. It pretty much says everything that you've heard tonight as well as other times, but sometimes a piece of paper helps.
Have
Thank
you
you.
given this to the Affordable Housing Committee as well? Have you given this to the Affordable Housing Committee as well?
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, next meeting we have is on Tuesday, November 22nd.
We are meeting back to back.
Or are we going to probably cancel that one?
I mean, I'm okay either way. I just wanted to
Well,
clarify.
you know what I would
my-
say is, this was a special meeting because we were supposed to meet on the 8th, but we couldn't because of the election, so we moved this. I'm not opposed to canceling the 22nd, if it makes sense to you guys.
I mean, I'm okay waiting to see if anything ends up coming up. If by the end of this week or Monday, you don't have anything for an agenda, then I'm fine canceling.
Was it too, it was good, the holiday
Yeah, it's
coming up
holiday
and so
week.
on, so.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not opposed to that. That's Thanksgiving week, actually, so. If something comes up, I'll let you know. And we can do a special meeting if we have to. If not, then the next meeting would be what?
Why would it be a special meeting?
If-
It would be our regularly scheduled.
Oh, if it was gonna be a meeting other than the 22nd.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Next one's December 13th after that.
Okay,
That might be a long ways to go, but
But we
I'm
can
I'm
always
fine.
do a special meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
or I can call our regular meeting. I don't have to cancel it till the last minute. As of right now, we don't have a meeting for we have one scheduled for the 22nd. I don't have to keep it until, I don't have to cancel until 24 hours.
When is
later.
our
That's
all
fine.
boards or our tri-board?
It's on Monday, the 12th, December 12th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, do I hit your,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all right, so the motion to adjourn and the time is 8 PM. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Bye, Steph.